Following the invasion in 1975, all international presence here, that was already extremely limited anyway. Actually, in 1975, on the eve of the invasion, we had few members of the International Committee of Red Cross here. But they too were forced to leave before the invasion because Indonesia refused to give them any guarantees of safety. So Timor-Leste became one of the countries in the world that was most cut off. A bit like Cambodia when the Khmer Rouge took over, when they began to empty Phnom Penh of everyone, anyone. So a few years later, the International Committee of Red Cross was able to return. UNICEF was able to do some work in the country. Some international NGOs were able to come, like the US Catholic Relief Services. And slowly, gradually, some other international institutions were able to provide some assistance to NGOs in Timor-Leste. The Norwegians, the Swedish, or the Canadians supported some local NGOs or some church NGOs. I personally, yes, lobbied very hard to have a UN presence here. I lobbied the UN. There were resolutions that were drafted by me that passed in the UN to have a UNHCR, UNICEF, UNDP, anything you name it, I wanted them here. Even when I was asked by foreign governments, like the Swedish or the Norwegians or the Canadians, about whether they should support certain institutions here, I was always in favor. Probably some of the Timorese NGOs don't know, like ETADEP, but I was one of those who argue for support to them. Suara Timur, which is back then was a lousy newspaper, very pro-Indonesia. But I told, no, support them. Any Timorese institution, I supported, because my argument was, regardless whether Timor is going to be free or not, regardless whether Timor is going to be independent or fully integrated in Indonesia, the Timorese people to survive, either as an independent country or survive within Indonesia, have to be supported. I encourage people to come, foreigners to come, tourists to come, visitors, media. So I was never in favor of boycotting completely Timor-Leste because of Indonesian occupation. And I was right then and I'm right today. I give even an example. When I won the Nobel Peace Prize in '96, I arrived in Norway. The main issue on my arrival at the airport from the media was whether I was in favor or not of a Norwegian oil company, Statoil, operating in the Timor Sea. They were there. And I said to the media, I will talk with them tomorrow, we will discuss this issue, and I will tell you what I feel. I met with the oil company the following day, Statoil, and they told me, as you know, we are in your hands. The public here will listen to you. Whatever you say, we will follow. If you want us to leave, we will leave. I asked them questions. I asked them, when are you going to know to start operating commercially? Because they will start just exploring. Oh, they said, we don't know. Even if we find gas and oil, it will take 6 to 7 years before we can produce. I said, then continue, don't leave. Long before that, we will be independent. Because if you leave now, we are independent, then you have to start all over again. So continue. The only thing I ask you, give us some scholarship from our students. And they gave $500,000 for scholarships that later, it was not implemented immediately, was implemented only, I think, in '97 through the Norwegian embassy in Jakarta and through Timor Aid, together with a Norwegian NGO. And one Timorese woman called Alexandra Reis, she was living in Portugal. She was the first beneficiary, and she got her first master's degree in petroleum economics in Norway from this scholarship. So I was very pragmatic. There were some radical Norwegian NGOs who were also against, for instance, the Norwegians financing a geological mapping of the whole of Indonesia, including Timor-Leste. I met then with the Secretary of State, Foreign Affairs of Norway, Jan Egeland, later became a very big Under-Secretary General at the UN, and I told him, no, go ahead. What I want is, when you finish it, give me a copy of that the geological map of Timor-Leste, because we will need it in the future. So my philosophy, tactics were always flexible, pragmatic. You cannot fight a struggle with dogmatism.